Welcome to my daily review. Today is Tuesday, April 29th. We have one more trading day in the month of April. And you're looking at a daily chart of the Nasdaq, which was up 95 points today, or 0.55%. You can forget about the volume. This is why I don't really use volume much anymore, but you could see it was massive volume, and I'll get to that in a minute. Just wanted to point out a couple things on the Nasdaq today. It was the third consecutive session where the low of the session is above this magenta line, which is the 21 EMA, and you can see the 10 is now trading above the 21, but it's still below the 50, which is that red line, and it's below the 200, which is the black line. 1% below the 50, 4.7% below this black line, which is the 200. So a 1% move, maybe we'll see resistance here. 4.7% move, maybe we see resistance here, but it needs to trade through these. It needs to stay above the 21. The low of the session needs to stay above the 21. We're a long way from a power trend, but this is very encouraging. A nice start to a rally, which we had this 27% correction from December 16th to April 7th. Now we've rallied back up 18% from the low to today's close. So nice rally back up, but we're going to need a lot more here for us to be, in something like this type of a power trend here, where the 10 and the 21 and the 50 are stacked above the 200. Long way to go for that, but still, nice rally, very encouraging. Everything seems to be in order. I think the people who sold off here, we talked about this capitulation selling here, a lot of selling here at the lows. Now they're getting back in here. I do want to mention, well, first I'll go to the SPY first. It's very similar to the Nasdaq, where it's had these 3 days of lows above the 21, 4 closes above the 21, but still, below the 50 and below the 200. So you can't get too bullish. This is a bear market rally until it turns into a bull market, right? So it's got a long way to go. Right here, it's let me see, 1% below the 50, and this one's 3.3% below the 200. So both the Nasdaq and the S&P have a lot of work to do. I have not looked at the RSP in a while, so I'll do that. This is up more than 0.5%. So yeah, the other 493 stocks are participating and not just the Mag 7. I do want to point out, though, when you look at this, heavy volume in the Nasdaq, this is WW International, the old Weight Watcher, I guess, and it's 569 million shares traded. It's 82 cents, okay? So that's not a lot of dollar volume. So when you look at the Nasdaq and you see, this heavy volume on the Nasdaq, and do the Q, see if I could type in the ticker symbol. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many billion this was today. Yeah, 13 billion or whatever. And, almost 600 million came from Weight Watchers, which is, 75-cent stock. So dollar volume not there. Yeah, it looks impressive on a chart, but that's why you kind of disregard volume. There's other, penny stocks or dollar stocks that are trading with heavy volume that are skewing this data here. So you got to disregard it, and that's why you use dollar volume and not just volume itself. All right, I'm going to move on because I have a lot to get to today. We don't trade indexes, we trade stocks, and I believe over time that earnings are going to move your stocks over time. Short term, yeah, interest rates and multiples contract and multiples expand, and there's a lot of variables. But over time, if a company can deliver sales and growth for a long, long time, like Waste Management has, and you get some appreciation through the good times, the bad times, through COVID, through, all sorts of bad stuff, right? And this thing still keeps chugging along. Why? Well, because they have a great business model. And I write them a check every month. Glad to do it. They reported earnings this morning, or yeah, they had the conference call this morning. I think they reported last night. Big sell-off in the morning, opens lower, and then people come in and buy it. I think it closed flat. Yeah. Yeah, just flat on the day. But you get a lot of wild reactions around earnings, and their earnings were, typically what they've been doing for a long, long time. So I wouldn't. It's kind of a widow stock where people own it just for, a little appreciation, a little dividend. It's a kind of a safe haven type of stock. Anyway, this morning we heard from Spotify. I had posted a video this weekend in the education center about, I don't know, 10 or 12 or 15 stocks that I couldn't control myself. And Spotify was one of them. And, they're going to continue to deliver these types of earnings. Like I said, it's going to be spotty, not to be punny, but it's it's not going to be a linear, move with Spotify. It's not going to be smooth. Every quarter is not going to be a blowout. But they're going to over time take market share, add users. Now, in their report this morning, they talked about adding the premium user, which beat estimates handily. They're doing fine. Yeah, but you got kind of a wonky sell-off here in the morning. I think it went down to like 540. If you were able to get it at 540, yeah, well, 45 minutes in, it traded at 540, so we were just getting out. Then, of course, smart people came in and started buying this thing up. So it closed, what about, $36 off the lows. And, it traded, below its 50, which will shake some technical traders out. But to me, that's just, some people getting off the train and then some new people getting on the train. Not a big deal overall. Yeah, it was down 3.5% on good earnings, but it'll probably be back over 600 here in a week or two. Spotify is a monster, and I wouldn't worry about it at all. That was a good earnings report, by the way. Wasn't blowout, but it was very good, and they're going to continue to have these types of earnings, kind of like Netflix over time. Not blowing out every quarter, but good some quarters, great other quarters. The UPS reported, nah, let's not talk about UPS. That was not a good quarter. Coca-Cola, these, another one of these widow stocks, they just Warren Buffett type, own it for the dividend, going nowhere. People are still going to drink Coca-Cola, good times and bad. SoFi reported kind of a muted response. It looked like it was up a lot higher in the morning, yeah, then sold off, gapped up, sold off. Seen that many, many times. So, like I said, these earnings, moves around earnings, you kind of, I don't say disregard them, but you get some wonky moves around earnings, and you can take advantage of them sometimes when they sell off, other times they spike up and then, come back to earth. But you just got to go by, this is pretty solid sales and earnings growth for SoFi. So longer term, I like SoFi. They do have the growth profile that you look for in a financial stock. The PayPal does not. It rallied up to its 50 today. Good for PayPal, but it's been in a downtrend. 1% sales growth does not get me excited. What does get me excited are these biotech stocks. They're really hitting on all cylinders. A lot of these smaller biotech stocks, this is a little over 6 billion. This is Verona. They reported this morning. Obviously, a nice response to this earnings report as it broke out of this base here. 70/40 is the buy point, standard buy point. You can see the blue dot here indicating relative strength line going through the moving averages up more than 6% with strong volume today. So a nice move for Verona. VRNA Regeneron reported this morning. Not so much, down 7%. You can see the red numbers. They might have to, buy some growth here. A lot of these big pharma names have to buy some growth. They're just going to have to bite the bullet and do it. Pfizer is one of them. It's these red numbers here, no sales growth. Buy something, and grow. Buy Viking. Uh, a couple other ones that reported today. Not biotech, but a tech stock or a fintech stock is Shift for Payments. CEO said didn't see any slowdown. The stock was up 12%, $10 move. So positive move on earnings. They weren't all negative. There was some positive among the negatives. And anyway, I'm going to move on. I've been talking about this gold trade. Looks like it's slowing down. I wouldn't say it's crashing. These things are trading down to their 21. So some money's coming out of the gold play. It's seen as a safe haven, and it still was trading over 3,300. But the stocks are just pulling back a little bit, and these are not crashing here. This is WPM above the 21, Agnico Eagle, yeah, above the 21. So these are not. Yeah, these are not crashing and burning. Yeah, AU above the 21, but they're selling off. They're well off their highs now, starting to pull back and maybe form a base. Much better than the insurance stock, which I mentioned, are just getting absolutely hammered. This is Bro. And then Ryan took a dive. Phew, man, below the 200. Gallagher, I think, got a little, short covering here yesterday, sold off again today. Whew, man. And then KNSL had a real rough move on earnings and inside day yesterday, and just yeah, just nothing. So this is 531 down to 434. So pretty rough 20% haircut there for Kinsale. So anyway, money's coming out of the gold, money's coming out of insurance. Where is it going to? Well, some of these growth stocks are getting some love. Like I say, the multiples expand, the multiples contract, depending, it's a very much a news-driven market. The news has been a little better lately. This is DoorDash, double bottom base. This one looks fantastic. They're going to report next week. Closed above its 50 now. So this one's interesting to me. MELI, this is one that I do have on my ready list. Had a nice move today, more than 3%, $72 move, breaking out of that double bottom base. SE is another one. Yeah, very nice. I'd like to see this 10 and the 21 drive through the 50, but this one still looks good. Had an early entry buy point. That one's playing out pretty well. CHWY, yeah, nice little base here, man. I should have had this one on. There's only so many retail stocks you could put on, but yeah, 35.40. Nice entry there for CHWY. Definitely broke above this down trending line here recently. Yeah, CHWY looks pretty good. Yeah. Just building the right side of the base though. There's no hurry. They got earnings at the end of May. Oh, that's right. Before I move on, I'm going to get to some more leading stocks here. I got to go to Netflix, though. It's up like 8 days in a row, since before the earnings report, then after earnings, just man, this is the leading stock making new highs. Now, all leading stocks don't need to be making new highs, but this one just happens to be. And this one's showing up on our screens. I show the screen at MC Stock Chart every morning of stocks, and I like them above their moving averages, and this one certainly fits that criteria. Quest, another one, above the moving averages, the 10 and the 21 now above the 50. That one's trending nicely with that really a 174 buy point as you get it as a trading tight within the base. And now it's starting to push away here at 178.87. Definitely an area of interest. That's Quest Diagnostics. Guardian Health shows up on these screens, and you could see why. Not just the blue dot here showing relative strength, but the 10, the 21, and the 50 stacked. This one's still in a base, still consolidating. Earnings tomorrow, so we'll see what they have to say here. That's Guardian Health. And what else we have? Oh, yeah. Well, I'm going to get to that one later, I think. All right, HIMS. I might as well go to these here. HIMS. Had a announcement with it, Novo Nordisk today, selling Wegovy. Earlier in the month, they had Zepbound, they had a contract with Eli Lilly to sell these weight loss drugs on their platform. So a nice move. Just a little bit of resistance there at the 50. It closed a tick below it. If I could grab that price tracker there. Yeah, it closed right at the 50. So look for that one to move higher through the 50 and have these short-term moving averages start ramping up here as it forms this base. HIMS, they're going to report May 5th, so next week. All right, a couple of other ones here. The money's going into these biotech stocks, these young upstart biotech stocks. I like them a lot. This is ADMA. Told you to watch this one, how breakouts are, being treated here out, in a bull market, these things can gap and go. This one just happened to fill the gap here today. Nothing wrong with that. You can see on the weekly chart, the high last week, 23.73, the low today, 22.43. So 22.73, 22.43. So yeah, still up 10% this week. Some profit takers are going to report next week. And based on that FDA approval, I think they're going to raise guidance. They're going to have to raise guidance. And that's what these guys are all about, all USA manufacturing, their clients, everything's done in the USA. So they're not, beholden to tariffs or any of that, tax or whatever. They got the FDA approval. I believe they're going to raise guidance next week. TGTX, another one of these smaller biotech, 6.8 billion now, made a new high today. And God, I had a lot of people hitting me up, oh, it's running too hard. No, it's not. Stop it. It's just forming a base here. It's just at the top of that base, 43.32. Right there, that would be a standard buy point. This is a 6-week base here. You'd call this a base on base pattern with that old buy point of 36.84 has a new buy point there at 43.32. And you got to look, take a look at some of these, different charts. Take a look at different time frames because you can see in December of 2020, it was a $56 stock and, just forming a base here. So yeah, I get it. It's 3.5 year base, but now it's starting to break out. So to me, I would say it would run up to 56 if it breaks out of a base here and probably get resistance there before, pushing back. If it breaks out of a base from, what should I say here, Marty? Yeah, it's just a base on base pattern here. 6 weeks is plenty of time. Just because it's making a new high, doesn't mean that it's extended or, it's got to pull back. Now, I hope it does pull back just gently for about 3 days. But when you're looking at leading stocks, you're looking at strong stocks in an uptrending market, you want to look at the five. And this thing is just trending along the five beautifully here. Since this most recent move, it had that pullback to what was it? $31. Yeah. Here it was found supported. It's 50 last week. Then bloop, bloop, bloop. That was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then today, yesterday and today, support at the five. So if it comes back to the five, to me, that's a buy, not a sell. Just because it's making a new high doesn't mean it's totally extended. Anyway, I think these guys are just getting rolling. They just launched their new drug. They're taking market share. And the reason why it went up today was because Novartis had their earnings report and their drug. This is an expanding market, a growing market. Last week, Roche reported a slight miss on their sales of their RMS drug. And today, Novartis reported 43% year-over-year growth. And that's what you should be seeing. And we know TG is taking market share. We just don't know how much. We're going to find out when they report earnings. But the market's starting to put two and two together here. Anyway, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Just ride the five to higher prices. And, just because the stock's trending higher doesn't mean it's going to, sell off or pull back or crash and burn. Yeah, it can rip. It can run up to 50 or 60. In fact, I expect after they report earnings at 40 will be the floor. After the last earnings report, I expected it to trade between 35 and 40 and pretty much did that. Went up to 43 and then down to 31 one day. But in between 35 and 40, and now it's starting to push above. And I think people are starting to figure out it's going to have a blowout earnings. And then it should trade between, I don't know, 15, 20% move. We'll call it 20% move, about $9 from 43. So about 50, 52. I would expect it on an earnings report, unless they completely, blow it, which I don't think they will. Anyway, that's it for that one. Another one that reports tomorrow. I'm going to have more on this later. Is this? This is setting up in a nice base here at 4% today. This is WGS. These biotech stocks look awfully good to me. There's a reason for that. SLNO, this one shows up on the screens, obviously, riding the five, much like TGTX, to higher prices, made a new high today. So why are these stocks making new highs? Well, somebody knows something. CPRX is another one, a little smaller, 3 billion market cap, still consolidating within a base, pull back to its 200. Now it's rallied back through. That one looks fantastic. Broke above its downtrend line here. You can see that steep trend line just broke above it. So that looks good to me. Oh, I mentioned HIMS, right? HIMS had to deal with Novo. So Novo, you can't even see it, up 4% today. This thing is sold off, and I think that's the bottom right there. I'm not a bottom fisher or a bottom caller. It's just, and I thought 80 was the bottom, but it pulled back here down to 57 2 weeks ago. Last week, 57 retest, and now it's at 65. That's way too cheap for this company. On May 7th, they're going to report earnings, and they're going to give an update on their oral weight loss drug, and I think it's Wegovy, yeah. And so they're going to have a pill form. They'll be first to market with the pill for weight loss. Wasn't that great? Take a pill, lose weight. Anyway, I prefer to diet and exercise properly, but you do whatever you have to do. This is really taking over the world, very popular, and it's good because the less mass you have, the less your heart works, kidneys, liver. Helps with sleep apnea, just a lot of different. It even helps with fertility when you lose weight. So anyway, that's it for the drugs. I'm going to get off the drug kick. I've got to go to another group that's showing strength. I'm just trying to show strength here. Novo is not showing strength, but stocks are, they're trading, stacked here, 10, 21, 50. This one happens to be making new highs. Like I said, they don't have to be making new highs. Some other ones that are leading stocks that are making new highs is Palantir that made that low of 66 12 recently. It was at April, the magic day, April 7th. And then it's just been rallying ever since. It's got the blue dot showing relative strength. It's not making a new high, but it is definitely a leading stock. This thing just won't go down. I look at it every morning and it might sell off a little bit in the morning and then it just pops right back up. If I go to like a 10-minute chart, you can see a couple of days worth of, right here, it just sells off, pops up, a little bit of selling, pops up. So, yeah, they can't keep this good stock down. Palantir is another one with Netflix. MicroStrategy, another leader, setting up in a base here, but it's not making new highs, but I think it's going to go through 400. It's that the trend, right? I didn't change that. That's still the five, right? Yeah, it's riding the five, the 21 and the 50. All right. So that's trending nicely. I mean, that's a thing of beauty right there. It's a leading stock, but it's not making new highs. I know people go to the new high list and say, oh, those are the leaders, which is true. I mean, we love new highs, but they don't have to be making new highs. That's my point. This is definitely showing power trend material. I might as well move this back here, back to the 10 because, we're just pulling out of this, correction. So a lot of stocks are just, still below their 10, just rising above their 50 and above their 21. So something to watch. And like I say, I post every morning some of these leading stocks that are trading above their moving averages. And then, well, I guess I got to go back to the, I got to go back to the drug stocks. I wrote these down wrong. Medical product stocks, they were showing well. Anyway, it's up 41% on the, they also got the deal with Novo Nordisk on the Wegovy to sell on their platform. So anyway, those stocks are looking great. A couple other ones. I did mention Zscaler, the cybersecurity names, which it's essential. And this is what I'm talking about. Stocks rallying above their 50, the 10 and the 21 still below, but this is showing real potential here as it consolidates within a base. Reporting earnings next week. CrowdStrike, another one, not making new high, but you can't tell me this isn't a leading stock. This is definitely a leading stock. It'll get to 455, I guess, in time, unless the market crashes and burns, which is possible. But CrowdStrike doesn't report to the end of May. Nice breakout from this cup with handle pattern. We can see it on the weekly here. Cup with handle broke out, really last week, 13%, and following through this week nicely. So CrowdStrike looks pretty darn good to me. There's a lot of stuff, to get to. I'm just going to stop right there, though, and just say adios, muchachos, except for none of the great Steve Jobs. I do have one more thing, and that is earnings reports. Obvious to me, I did go through the Starbucks earnings report, and it's down 5% after hours, but it's not just the top and bottom lines miss. It's their same store sales that are shrinking. Someone's taking market share from them, or I should say they're losing market share. No doubt about it. The new CEO, Brian Nichols, trying everything. It's not working. It's kind of the boomer coffee shop. And the younger folks don't want to drink coffee with their mom and pops or grandma and grandpa. They're going to their own gigs. And I think Dutch Bros is really taking market share from them right here. This should be up a lot on that Starbucks report. A few weeks ago at their investor day, they raised same store sales guidance like 4.5%. And Starbucks is shrinking like the Wicked Witch of the West. I'm melting. And this one here, double bottom base pattern. Yeah, they're going to report next week. They're going to crush. They're just in the infancy stage, though. They're growing. There's going to be growing pains, and like I said, it's not every quarter is not going to be massive blowouts, but over time, and like I said, you got to look at different time frames. Over time, this is just one big IPO base. This is just a baby here. Came to market in October of 2021. So give it some time. Just think of how many years it took Starbucks to get rolling and to make shareholders happy. All right, that's it for Starbucks. Snap, not a bad report. It's just they didn't give any guidance and they removed guidance. They blamed it on, geopolitical BS, but down 12%. That does not, I shouldn't say negative things. Anyway, that's okay. They had a good report. They didn't give guidance, so it's selling off. BKNG, the booking had a great report, beat on the top bottom line, beat on all metrics, but guidance is a little, how shall I say, squishy. And so the market doesn't like that. We'll see how it responds tomorrow. Maybe it'll pull a Spotify. We'll see. Visa, good report. American, we're spending, everybody's spending money. They're buying on their credit card, which is not always that great, but good report. And Visa is doing what Visa does, right? Up 1%. First Solar, ouch. This one got hammered. Ugh, down 10%. That's a nice haircut. Cuervo, the semiconductors are kind of hit and miss here. After hours, Cuervo up 8% on their earnings report, but Supermicro, they give preliminary warnings here. They're missing badly on everything, down 16%, and that could hit Nvidia, even though Nvidia is a much bigger company. This is a partner, so yeah, Nvidia's down 2% on that news. A couple other ones. I'm going to get to some good stuff here. This is a oddity, the cosmetic personal care stock kind of maybe taking market share from Elf. I don't know. It's up 20% after hours. Nice move during the session, 5%. Earnings report, well received. We'll see how it trades tomorrow. I didn't read through the report at all. I'm going to have to do that in the morning. STX, another strong report, raised everything, man. These guys, yeah, they raised guidance, which is what the Wall Street wants to hear. They don't want to hear this Mickey Mouse, we're going to withhold guidance. They want to hear what's going on, good, bad, or indifferent. And that's why what was it, the United Airlines guy or Delta? One of the airlines just gave two scenarios. The bad scenario and the good scenario, and you decide what you like. Um, anyway, LRN reported after the bell. Nice 3% move here for Stride Consumer Education. And there's a lot of changes in the education business. That reminds me of Duolingo. People are learning, on their own. Maybe they don't want to spend all that money on college and getting some help online. Duolingo, learn languages by yourself. They're going to report the first, which is Thursday. And let me see. Caesar reported, and not bad, 2.4% move. We'll take that. Yeah, we want things going up. I don't care what they're in. You don't want stocks that are trading higher. All right, tomorrow we have Humana to look forward to. The kitty cats reporting. Construction, we'll see what they have to say. VMC, Vulcan Materials reporting in the morning. Another one of these, in the Seagate data storage groups reporting in the morning. So Seagate was good. Maybe Western Digital was good. Generac reports in the morning. Looking forward to hearing from them. I mentioned WGS earlier. They're going to report in the morning. I'm thinking I don't know. Biotech's been pretty strong, and they have a nice growth profile here. So we'll just wait and see what they said. I believe that thing's set up pretty nicely And GE Healthcare, they report in the morning as well. So one last thing I just wanted to show is the Nasdaq here on the month. I did mention tomorrow is the last day of the month. We had two down months in a row, really ugly months here. Down 4% February, down 8% in March. It was down the start of April, but now it's climbed back up, and it's if it can not go down more than 162 points tomorrow, it'll be a positive month. We haven't had three down months since that three legs down in the summer of 2023. And then once again in the bear market, we had 3 months down in 2022. Kind of a rare thing, for the Nasdaq to be down 3 months in a row. Over time, the index goes higher. And that's why people like buying index funds, especially if you're young, just buy into the SPY or the QQQs. These things go up over time. And that's why the longs always have the benefit over the shorts and the indexes, not necessarily individual stocks. But these are going to trade higher. If you're going to buy leaps a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, these are going to be higher. I mean, because that's just the way it works. This S&P 500 kicks out the weak performing stocks and they bring in the stronger performing stocks. And so that definitely benefits that index. Same with the QQQs, right? They have the stronger stocks in the QQQs and they boot out the weaker ones. And the index continue to trade higher over time. Anyway, thank you for watching NMCStockCharts.com. We never give up.